Across this country, people are rising up, not only out of anger, but out of a deep sense of moral urgency to protect neighbors, to defend rights, to demand accountability. But as we've learned together and through history, protesting is not without risk. Alex Preddy and Renee Good were observing or documenting ICE or CBP activity, a form of resistance, when they were shot and killed by agents of the state. So I understand if you are now afraid to do the same. I also understand that many of you are going to protest anyway, and that the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy have only motivated you to do even more. I want to be clear about this. I am not ambivalent about protest or about economic boycotts or about divestment. I come from protest. As you know, I'm the child, the grandchild, the nephew, and the brother of protesters. My grandfather, who you've heard me talk about, was Gandhi's youngest student at Tolstoy Farm in Johannesburg in the early 20th century. That's where he learned self-denial and discipline and gained the moral and intellectual strength to use his mind and body in the fight against apartheid. My uncle was a communist, not so much out of ideology, but because the West turned its back on the anti-apartheid struggle until Jimmy Carter became the president. He trained in communist camps across Eastern Europe to overthrow, by force if necessary, the violently oppressive apartheid government. I've been detained and thrown out during a political protest when I was in college for nothing more than trying to ask a political candidate a question. So protest is not an abstraction to me. It's not theoretical. It's in my blood. And I see it not just as a right, but as an obligation of citizenship to stand up for our neighbors, not only for ourselves. The First Amendment guarantees the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, end quote. Those rights are neither optional nor radical. They are foundational to our democracy. So today, we aren't just talking about why people protest. We're going to explain how to protest in the safest manner, how to prepare your mind and your body, how to protect your rights, how to look out for yourself and for each other. To walk us through these best practices, I'm joined by Yang He, organizing director for the nonprofit Immigrant Defense Network, which helps train communities how to safely resist ICE and help protect their communities. Yang, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yang, when observing and documenting an ICE or a CBP encounter, you say to follow these steps. First, identify yourself verbally as a constitutional observer. 2, stay at a safe distance of at least 8 feet away and avoid any physical contact with officers. 3, record events with videos and photos. 4, ask questions and to ICE and the witnesses about what's happening. So let's go through these. Talk me through this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Well, first thing first is understanding your rights that you do as a citizen or non-citizen in the soil of the United States. You have the rights to observe. And when we say constitutional observe, right, there are multiple ways that you can do that. But in this case, we're talking about video taping. And then we also do tell people that if you are trained as a constitutional observer, you do want to identify yourself as one. We do have vests, we do have badges. And so that way, as we know, when circumstances happen, we don't have time to verbally say it, but that is a way to physically and visually identify yourself as someone who has been trained and understand the steps to safely observe. And then we move on and look into how do you do it correctly when you are recording. We always suggest that if you are recording videotape, you want to make sure that you keep your videotape, prolong it. Don't tape it where it's 30 second or 10 second. If you're recording, it should be from the beginning until all the way at the end. And so that way we have the full scene of what's happening and the activity that is going down, right? And then then we move on and we also talk about the safety for yourself. And when we say 8 to 10 feet, that also means that we want to make sure that we can ensure safety for yourself and those who are around you. Because we have seen in the moment that if you trip, especially in Minnesota, it's icy, and you somehow stumble upon a ICE agent, that in a way, they will use that in a way to then say that you're obstructing federal agents. And so we always say, keep your distance as much as you can, and then use your video to zoom in. And then from the asking the question point here, we always say, focus your camera on the ICE agent. Ask the question to the ICE agent, right? And so that way then, as we are focusing on the ICE agent, we can really be able to focus in terms of what they are doing. We have something called the salute. value that we tell all trained constitutional observer to follow through.
And I'll
through
just
that
read that
salute,
out. I'll read it out for
yeah,
the viewer. Salute stands for size, activity, location, uniform, time, and equipment. Tell me what that means.
perfect. And so whenever we are recording, whether through note taking or video, salute is where we are the main points that we're looking for. The size, particularly in terms of how big the size of agents. Are there one? Are there two? Are there multiples, right? And then, excuse me, we move into activity. What is happening? Is there a raid? Are they just patrolling? Are they parked, right? And then we move into the
Location.
excuse me, location, which is really key point. And I think this is something that individuals sometimes forget is that this location, if you don't know where it is, right, you can videograph the intersection of the streets or a big landmarks that way then afterward when we review it, our legal team review it, we can identify this is where it happened, right? And so location is really a key point in that as well too. And so we move on to uniform. In that case, for uniform, it's really important because we have seen that ICE agents, border patrols, they have moved away from wearing their uniforms to just regular citizens' clothing, right? And so if we can identify, hey, these ICE agent or border patrols, they are just wearing regular clothing or they're in their uniforms, they have badges, right? They can identify themselves. We can identify themselves, and that's really key point as well too. And then we move on to after the salute to the T, which is time. This is really important as we know that there's a lot of situations that is happening all at the same time. It is important that we either verbally, and this is the key point too, is that we can verbally, as we record, state all these salute as well too. So if you don't have the time on your phone recorded or screenshot, you can verbally say that this is happening at this time from 8:37 a.m. And then we move on to the last one. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Equipment.
Equipment. So it's really important here in this case because we have seen that in the past, ICE agent, or I should say federal agents here have been violent. And so it's important to note that we capture and we verbally say they are using pepper spray, they are using guns, whatever equipment they have is key for us to see visually and hear it from the trained constitutional observer.
Yang, what about if they move to arrest someone near you or move to arrest you?
Yes. So two separate situations. If they are arresting or detaining someone that is near you, again, follow that step, continue recording, keep your safe distance. If they do ask you questions, you do have the right to stay silent, right? You do not need to answer them. However, it is key that you verbally say, as you're recording, saying that I plead the fifth, I have the right to not answer your question. You need to verbally say that so that way you capture yourself saying that. Similar thing, if they come to you and they're trying to arrest you, make sure that you verbally record yourself saying, I plead the fifth, I have the right to not answer your question, and then record yourself complying to what they're asking you to do, right? And again, they don't have the right to take your phone away. But we do know that federal agents, they don't follow the law. And so as you are recording and they're trying to, right, keep your phone on. And then if they're trying to take it, you, again, verbally have to say, you do not have the right to confiscate my phone, right? And then that way, then we can ensure that we capture all the activity that the federal agents are breaking, all the law that the federal agents are breaking.
Wow, Yang, I could sit and talk to you for hours, and I hope people do. I appreciate your time. Yang He is the organizing director for the nonprofit Immigrant Defense Network. They undertake as part of their work, they undertake these trainings on how to be a constitutional observer.